भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। पुरुष सुक्ता टेक्स्ट 1। ब्रह्म उवाच वाचां वहे मुखं क्षेत्रं छन्दसा सप्तधातवः हृदय कव्यामृतान्नानां जिह्वा सर्वस्य च।
Translation. Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the protective center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people.
Text 2. सर्वासुनां च वायोश्च तन्नाशे परमायणे अश्विनो रोषधीनां च त्राणो मोद प्रमोदय.
Translation. His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and of all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Ashvini Kumara demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance.
Text 3. रूपाणां तेषां चक्षुर्दिव सूर्यस्य चाक्षिणे कर्णो दिशा च तीर्थानां श्रोत्रमाकाशब्दयो.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound.
Text 4. तद्गत्राणां वस्तुसाराणां सौभगस्य च भजनं त्वगस्य सर्पवायोश्च सर्वमेघस्य चैव हि.
Translation. His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice.
रोमय उद्विजजातीनां एवा यज्ञस्तु सम्भूत केशस्वशृणस्खानस्य शिलोलाः प्रविधुताम्.
The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores.
Text 6. Bahavo lokpalanam prayasya shema karmanam.
Translation. The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass.
Text 7. Vikarmo brubhava swasya shemasya saranyasya sarvakama varasyapi hareshcharana aspadam.
Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear.
Text 8. Apam virvasya swargasya prajanyasya prajapate punsham sheshna upasthattu prajatyananda nirviteha.
From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting.
Text 9. Paryoyamasya mitrasya parimoksha narada hinsaya nirotte Martyu nirayasya gudam smata.
O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
Text 10. Parabhutter dharmasya tamaschapi paschima nandayo nandadina cha gotranam asti samhatiha.
The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains.
Text 11. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanyasa cha udaram viditam pumso hradayam manasa padam.
The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men.
Text 12. Dharmasya mamtubhyam cha kumaranam bhavasya cha vignanyascha sattvasya parastyatma parayanam.
Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanat Kumara, and Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge.
Text 13 to 16. Aham bhavan bhavascheva tam ime manayo graja surasur nara naga khagam ruksari shupa gandharva apsaraso yaksha raksho bhuta gano raga pasava pitram siddha vidyadharanascha druma अन्ये च विविधा जीवा जलस्थलम भोक्कस ग्रहक्षके तवक्स्ता रास्तिन्दीत स्तनये तनव सर्वपुरुषं तवेदं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च यत् तेन दमावृतं विश्वं विस्तटिम् अधितिष्ठति.
Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you and Parvasiva, all the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Vakshas, Rakshas, Futaganas, Uragas, Pashus, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches.
Text 17. Swadhishnanyam pratanam prano bahishva pratapatyaso evam virajaman pratapam patyanta bahirpunam.
The sun illuminates both. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally.
Text 18. So amrutasya bhayaseyo martyamanna yatyagata mahisetato brahman purushasya duratyaya.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness, and he is the transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person.
Text 19. Padesu sarva bhutani पुंसं स्थितिपदो विदु अमृतं सेमं भयं त्रिमुद्नोदायि मुदसु.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the supreme reservoir of all material opulences by the 1/4 of his energy, in which all the living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems, beyond the material coverings. The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds.
Text 21. Sruti vichakrame viswang shananasane ube yad vidya cha purastubhya bhayashraya.
By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nescience and factual knowledge of all situations.
Text 22. Yasmadandam vidanga jagne putendra gunatmaka tadadravyama tyagad viswam gopi surya ivatapan.
From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated. Yet, he is aloof from such material manifestations like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat.
Hare Krishna, if I made any mistake, please forgive me.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So very beautifully recited in Sanskrit and also in English, Mataji. Thank you so much. It is very blissful and auspicious. Okay, thank you so much. So shall move into Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we are in the Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 17 and 18. So before we start Srimad Bhagavatam, we shall offer our Mangalacharan prayers to the Lord and Acharyas. अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांशां श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांशाम्। हे कृष्ण करुण सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविकासस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृणुतां स्वकथाः कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृसतां। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। एते चां सकलाः पुंसः कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारिव्याकुलं लोकं व्रजयन्ति युगे युगे। इदं भागवतं नाम पुराणं ब्रह्म संहितम् उत्तमश्लोकचरितं चकार भगवान् ऋषिः निःश्रेयसाय लोकसधन्यं स्वस्तये नमः। कृष्णे स्वदामोपगते धर्मज्ञानादिभिः सह कलो न सदृशामेष पुराणार्को अधुनोदितः। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रये। अतिविश्वेश विश्वात्मन् विश्वमूर्ते स्वकेषु मे स्नेहपाशमिमं चिन्निदृढं पाण्डुषु विष्णुषु। त्वयि मे नन्यविषया मतिर्मदपते सकृत् रतिमुद्वह तद्दगम्यवघमुदन्वति। श्रीकृष्ण कृष्ण सखा विष्णु ऋषभावनिधृग्राजन्यवंशदहनानपवर्गवीर्य गोविन्द गोद्विजसुराट्य हरावतार योगेश्वर किल गुरो भगवन् नमस्ते। योगेश्वर किल गुरो भगवन् नमस्ते। योगेश्वर किल गुरो भगवन् नमस्ते। तुलयामलवेनापि न स्वर्गं न पुनर्भवं भगवत्सङ्गीसङ्गस्य मत्येनां किमुतशशः। पुनश्च भूयात् भगवत्यनन्ते रतिः प्रसङ्गशतदाश्रयेषु महस्तु यां यामुप्यामि सृष्टिं मैत्रस्य सर्वत्र नमो द्विजेभ्यः। ओम नमो भगवते राधा गोविन्दाय नमः। हरे कृष्ण। Okay, so thank you so much all the devotees for kindly giving your association. Okay, I shall share my screen. Okay, hope my screen is visible to everyone. Okay, so just a recap in the previous verses up to 16 verses. So in the previous verses, Lord Brahma is speaking to Narada Muni about the Rupa Virat Rupa form, how his form is, and what Virat Rupa form accommodates all the universes and planets and everything. So just to recap, so this 13 to 16 verses. Aham bhavan bhavashaiva taime munyograjaha sura asura nara nagaha kaga mruga sri supaha gandharvapsaraso yaksha raksho bhota ganuragaha पशवः पितरः सिद्धाः विद्याधराः चारणद्रुमाः अन्ये च विविधा जीवा जलस्थल नभोकसः केतवः तारातरितः स्तयत्नवः सर्वं पुरुष एवेदं भूतं भव्यं भुवच्छयत् तेनेदम् आवृतं विश्वं वितस्तिम् अधितिष्ठति. So in the previous slide, so beginning from Brahma down to you and Bhava Shiva, all the great sages who are born before you, the demigods, the demons, nagas, human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems.
He's in meeting. Anik is in.
So, namely, the Gandharvas, Apsarasas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhotaganas, Uragas, Pasus, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future. Although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches. So here it is not exceeding 9 inches. This is with a stitim. With a stim aditistati. So Prabhupada is giving the translation as not exceeding. So it comes from Purusha Sukta as well. So in the Purusha Sukta, Sabhomim Visputavritva Atyatishta Dashangulam. Dasha Angulam. There are Dasha Angulam is the 10 inches. Here not exceeding 9 inches. Prabhupada is giving the similar kind of translations. So here about the Virat Rupa form. And even though he is maintaining all this universe, but he is transcendental to all of these things. Okay, so that is the recap. So we shall enter into the today's verses. So after that, Brahma is speaking to Narada Muni. And he says that how the Lord is expanding himself to maintain these universal cosmic manifestations, giving an example or analogy. Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahishya pratapatyasau evam virajam pratapam tapati antar bahihi puman. Swadishnyam pratapan prano. So Swadishnyam, by the radiation, Swadishnyam pratapan prano, by expansion of his radiation, bahishya pratapatyi asau, and a person who is blazing, who is illuminating all the planetary systems. Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahishya pratapatyasau. So here, who is doing that asau is the sun god, who is illuminating all the planets. So when the sun god illuminates, he illuminates inside the planet and also giving the light to all other living entities as well. So Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahishya pratipatyasau. So evam virajam. Similarly, evam virajam pratapam tapati antar bahihi puman. Puman is the supreme personality of Godhead, similar to the sun god. So the Lord, he also expands himself inside and also outside. Antaha bahihi, internally and externally. And so here Virajam, the universal form, he expands his universal form. Virajam Pratapan, by expansion of, and Tapati, in livens, internally and externally. Antaha Bahihi, Puman, the supreme personality of Godhead. So giving an analogy with the sun god for our understanding. So because of our ignorance, we cannot understand. So that's why Lord is giving so many analogies to us. Swadishnyam pratapan prano bahishya pratapatyasau evam virajam pratapam tapati antar bahihi puman. So translation for this verse. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. And purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the universal form of the Lord, or the impersonal feature of the Lord, known as Brahma Jyoti, is clearly explained here and compared to the radiation of the sun. The sunshine may expand all over the universe, but the source of the sunshine, namely the sun planet or the deity known as Surya Narayana, is the basis of such radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the basis of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti radiation, or the impersonal feature of the Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14.27. So, the universal form of the Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. But the primary form of the Lord is Shyamasundara, with the two hands playing on his eternal flute. 75% of the expansive radiation of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky, that is Tripad Vibhuti. And 25% of his personal radiation complements the entire expansion of the material universes. This is also explained and stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.42. Thus, the 75% expansion of his radiation is called his internal energy, whereas the 25% expansion is called the external energy of the Lord. The living entities who are residents of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are his marginal energy, Tatastha Shakti, and they are at liberty to live in either of the energies, external or internal. Those who live within the spiritual expansion of the Lord are called liberated souls, whereas the residents of the external expansion are called the conditioned souls. We can just make an estimate of the number of residents of the internal expansions in comparison with the number of residents in the external energy, and may easily conclude that the liberated souls are far more numerous than the conditioned souls. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So here in this purport, Prabhupada is explaining the Lord's impersonal feature of the Lord, which is the Brahma Jyoti. So the Lord expands himself into Brahma Jyoti, Paramatma and Bhagavan in the three phases. Vadanti tattat vidastatvam yajnanamadbhayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabjate. So for that one, and here analogy is like giving with Surya Narayana, Vivaswan, the current sun god name who is ruling the planet. His name is Vivaswan, and his name is also known as Surya Narayana. And because of his energy, so in the Brahma Samhita also, Yachakshureta Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Surumurtira Shesha Tejaha Yasyadhya Brahmati Samruta Kala Chakru Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So here Savita Sakala Grahanam, Savita is the sun god. So he is also and Raja, he is the Raja Samasta Surumurtira Shesha Tejaha. And all Yasyabhya Brahmati Samruta Kala Chakru, based on the Lord's instructions, or I mean Lord's order. So all these planetary systems are moving, and the sun god is also blazing. Madbhayat vati vatoyam suryahatapati madbhayat mrutyuho charati varshati indro dahati agnihi mrutyuho charati madbhayat. It is everything is moving on the by the fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here Prabhupada is further saying, and similarly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the basis for the impersonal Brahman. Brahmano hi pratisthapam amrutasya avyasya cha shasvatasya dharmasya sukasya cha aikantikasya cha. The Brahmano hi pratisthapam. This is the 14.20. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amrutasya avyasya cha. So here the Lord says, I am the basis of impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So that is the Brahma. So generally these Mayavadis, they by their way of process, they wanted to merge Saijya Mukti into that Brahman, but which is Kuto Anyat Kal Viplutam, which is not permanent. So Lord says, Salokyadi Chatustayam Matsevaya Pritante Salokyadi Chatustayam Nechyante Sevaya Purnaha Kuto Anyat Kal Viplutam. So that is my devotional service. It is Pritamte. That means it is a famous in such a way that my devotees, they do not expect the Salokyadi Chatushtayam, the out of 5 liberations, Salokya, Sarishti, Sarupya, Samipya. These are the for the devotees, and Sai Jamukti is for the impersonal, who are worshipping in the impersonal form of the Lord. So here Lord is saying, Kuto Anyat Kalviplutam, apart from this, for anything else with his Kalviplutam, they are not permanent. So indirectly Lord is saying that one. So Brahma Jyoti is also basis of the Lord. If any liberated souls, anyone wanted to merge there, they can temporarily they gain that position, but it is not permanent. So without having any particular occupation or service to the Lord, they cannot maintain for longer period. So, and here further, Prabhupada is explaining about the, so that is impersonal form, and the primary form of the Lord is the Syama Sundara with 2 hands. This is Venu Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Sam Asitam Bhuda Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. So this is the beauty of it, the Lord's personal feature. That is Shyama Sundara with 2 hands playing on his eternal flute. And 75% of the expansive radiation of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky. That is Tripad Vibhuti. So this spiritual planets description, we can see these things in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the later cantos, later chapters, where all these people, they are always worshipping Vasantyatra Purushaha Sarve Vaikunta Muttayaha Ye Animitta Nimittena Dharmena Aradayan Harim. There the people Shamavadataha Satapatra Lochanaha Pishangavastraha Suruchaha Supeshashaha Sarve Chaturbaha Unmishanmani Praveka Nishkabaranaha Suvarchasaha Pravala Vaidurya Mrunala Varchasaha Parispar Kundala Mauli Malinaham. These are beauties glorifying all this, the beauty of the people living in the spiritual planets. They're all the youth and always worshipping Vaimanikaha Sallalana Charitani Shashvat Gayanti Yatra Samalakshapanani Bhattuhu Antargataha Antarjala. So there they are always going in their airplanes along with their concerts and glorifying the Lord's pastimes. Even though the smells coming from so many Malti flowers, they still condemn that smells and the flavors and aroma of these flowers. They want to glorify that. That is the beauty of it. Everything, all the birds and flowers, everything. Yat sankulam haripada anati matra drushtaihi vaidurya marakata hemamayihi vimanayihi yesham bruhat katitataha smitasobi mukyaha krishnatmanam naraja adhu usmayadhyaihi. Everything by the glance of the Supreme Lord. All these planets, they are very, very beautifully. They don't have to work like us in this material world. We have to go to office from morning to evening. So here people are nidraya hrite naktam vyavayena cha vavayaha. They are always sleeping in the night and also indulging in the sex life, and in the daytime they engage in the horrible works. And that is how evam kutumba bharanenava, and maintaining the kutumba and family things, which are temporary things, they all of their time will be vainly spent. So one has to always contemplate on the Lord's form with 2 hands and his expansions and Vaikunta's descriptions. Then only, so Brahma says in the other Yenna Vrajantagabidu Rajanan Vadas Shrinvanti Yeni Vishyaha Kukata Matignihi Yasusahada Bhagaihi Rupiratta Sara Tantan Chipanti Asaraneshu Tamasuhanta. And whoever is not hearing about the glories of the Lord, they will be casting into, and who are only hearing all the materialist things, they will be casting into tamassu hanta, into mode of ignorance, in the lower species of life. If they hear such kind of thing, the matignihi, so their intelligence will be ruined. They cannot have the proper steady intelligence to understand the transcendental nature of the spirit soul and the Supreme Lord. So that is spiritual sky Tripad Vibhuti. And the 25% people here in this material world, all are imprisoned here. It is the Durga. And here the Lord is maintaining with only one single expansion of it. This is Vishtab Atava Bahunaitena Kim Jnatena Tavajjuna Vishtabhyaham Vidam Krishnam Ekamshena Stito Jagat. So only with only one expansion. All these material worlds are just like a, so everything is spiritual planets, Vaikuntha planets, Goloka, and everything. And the Lord, he expands into three Purusha Rupas. Vishnu's three Nirupani, Purushakya Anyuto Viduhu. One is the Karnodak Sai Vishnu, for the maintenance of the, for creating maintenance and destruction purposes. So here Karnodak Sai Vishnu, with his one expansion, he comes from Mahasankashana. And then further he expands into Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, and then Kshirodak Sai Vishnu. So wherever we take, he's just only Ekamshena Sito Jagat. And if we see from here, one Karnodak Sai Vishnu having so many universes. One Garbhodak Sai Vishnu is maintaining one entire universe. And Kshirodak Sai Vishnu expands himself as a super soul in all the planetary systems, into the heart of all the living entities. So wherever position we take, this verse applies Ekamshen Sito Jagat. It applies to, one is Mahashankana or Karnodak Sai Vishnu or Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, everywhere. So that is Ekamshena Sito Jagat. He creates, maintains, and destroys. Ekamshena Sito Jagat. And here living entities who are residents of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are his marginal energy. Marginal energy is the Tatastha Shakti. So this Lord's energy is divided into three types. One is the internal potency, external potency, and then is the marginal potency. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta. This is Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta mentioned like a three. One is the internal potency and marginal potency. Avidya karma sanyate. It is due to the ignorance they are entangled in the material world. If they wish, they can go to the spiritual world. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Kshetra Dhyankya Tata Para Avidya karma sanyaya Trutiya Shakti Rishyate. Trutiya Shakti Rishyate. That is the third Tatastha Shakti. And but who live in the spiritual planet, all these souls, liberated souls, they're all eternal. Dvavimau Purusha Uloke Kshara Akshara Yevacha. This is two kinds of living entities. One is Kshara, who have fallen down into this metal and entangled and wrapped up by mind, intelligence, and ego. On top of that, gross elements, this earth, water, fire, and wind and space, these are enwrapping the soul. That's why in such a way, Yaya Sammohito Jiva Trigunatmakam. So this is Vyasadeva sees that all the living entities, they think that they are the body. Likewise, Yaya Sammohito Jiva, they are in the bewilderment all the time. But this one Aksharas, Kshara Sarva Bhutani, Potastu Akshara Uchyate. Aksharas, they are in the spiritual, Potastu Akshara Uchyate. They are called Aksharas. And in the 15th chapter, Krishna mentions that one, I am out of these Aksharas, I am the Uttama Purusha. Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. And then further, Prabhupada mentions we can make the estimate number of, so if this knowing to our calculation, human beings are around 8 billions of this material world. But if we just calculate, there are so many 8.4 million species of life in this universe. And if for this is only one human category, and there are so many other things we can calculate and estimate the volume of all the living entities here, and which are not visible to us, and in multiplying 3 times at least based on these calculations, how many living entities are existing in the spiritual world. So that is Prabhupada is explaining here. That is how the Lord is maintaining this universe, and by expanding himself internally and externally. That is evam virajam pratapam tapati antarbahih puman. Like a sudishnyam pratapan prano bahisha pratapatyasau. Like the sun, how he is illuminating the sun planet and all other planets. Likewise, the Lord also illuminates internal and also external. So that is from this verse, and we shall move into the next verse. This is further. Brahma is saying to Narada that the Supreme Lord, he is the Lord of Amrutatva, deathlessness, and also Abhayam. Abhayam is the fearlessness, because he is the Lord of this immortality and also fearlessness. And whoever, and he is beyond this material world, and whoever associating with that Lord, they will also get the fearlessness and also deathlessness. So, and all his glories are immeasurable. Likewise, Brahma is further saying. So this is 18th verse. Sa amrutasya bhayasya isho machyamannam yadachyagat mahima esha tato brahman purushasya dhuratyayah. So amrutasya abhayasya isho, and sa, the Lord, amrutasya abhayasya, and of the deathlessness, and abhayasya of fearlessness. For these things, Isho, he is the controller. For that Lord, controller of amrutasya abhayasya Isho. Machyamannam yadachyagat. Machyamannam, this is a dying, this Machyam Annam. Machyam is the dying, that is the people of this material world, Annam on their fruitive activities. And yet Atyagat, and for all these activities, this deathness and fruitive activities, the Lord is Atyagat, and he transcended. The Lord, he is transcended to this death and also fruitive activities. And he is the controller of this death and also Abhayam. Mahimayesha tato Brahman Purusha Duratyayah, and all his glories, Mahimayesha, the Lord's glories, tato Brahman, O Brahmana, Narada, Purushasya Duratyayah, the Supreme Personality of Godhead glories are immeasurable. Likewise, Brahma is saying to Narada Muni. So, translation for this verse: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness, and he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person. And purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the glories of the Lord in the transcendental 75% of the Lord's internal potency are stated in the Padma Purana, Uttarakanda. It is said there that those planets in the spiritual sky, which comprises the 75% expansion of internal potency of the Lord, are far, far greater than those planets in the total universes composed of the external potency of the Lord. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the total universes in the external potency of the Lord are compared to a bucket full of mustard seeds. One mustard seed is calculated to be a universe itself. In one of the universes in which we are now living, the number of planets cannot be counted by human energy. And so, how can we think of the sum total in all the universes? See, and which are compared to a bucket full of mustard seeds. And the planets in the spiritual sky are at least 3 times the number of those in the material sky. So such planets being the spiritual are in fact transcendental to the material modes. Therefore, they are constituted in the mode of unalloyed goodness only. So the conception of spiritual bliss, Brahmananda, is fully present in those planets. Each of them is eternal, indestructible, and free from all kinds of limitations experienced in the material world. Each of them is self-illuminating and more powerfully dazzling than if we can imagine the total sunshine of millions of mundane suns. And the inhabitants of those planets are liberated from birth, death, old age, and diseases and have full knowledge of everything. They are all godly and free from all sorts of material hankerings. They have nothing to do there except to render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Narayana, who is the predominating deity of such Vaikuntha planets. Those liberated souls are engaged in incessantly in singing songs mentioned in the Samaveda. Vedaihi Sangapada Kamo Kramopanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaham. All of them are personifications of the 5 Upanishads. Tripad Vibhuti, or the 75% known as the internal potency of the Lord, is to be understood as the kingdom of God, far beyond the material sky. And when we speak of Pada Vibhuti, or the 25% comprising his external energy, we should understand that this refers to the sphere of the material world. It is also said in the Padma Purana that the kingdom of Tripad Vibhuti is transcendental, whereas the Pada Vibhuti is mundane. Tripad Vibhuti is eternal, whereas Pada Vibhuti is transient. The Lord and his eternal servitors in the transcendental kingdom all have eternal forms which are auspicious, infallible, spiritual, and eternally youthful. In other words, there is no birth, death, old age, disease. That eternal land is full of transcendental enjoyment and full of beauty and bliss. This very fact is also corroborated in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the transcendental nature is described as Amrita, or deathlessness, as described in the Vedas. Uta Amrutatva Sheshanaha. The Lord, the Supreme Lord, is the Lord of immortality, or in other words, the Lord is immortal. And because he is the Lord of immortality, he can award immortality to his devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, the Lord also assures that whoever may go to his abode of immortality shall never return to this mortal land of threefold miseries. The Lord is not like the mundane world. The mundane master or the Lord never enjoys equally with his subordinates, nor is a mundane Lord immortal, nor can he award immortality to his subordinate. The Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all living entities, can award all the qualities of his personality onto his devotees, including immortality and spiritual bliss. In the material world, there is always anxiety or fearfulness in the hearts of all living entities. But the Lord, being himself the supreme fearless, also awards the same quality of fearlessness to his pure devotees. Mundane existence is itself a kind of fear because in all mundane bodies, the effects of birth, death, old age, and disease always keep a living being compact in fear. In the mundane world, there is always the influence of time, which changes things from one stage to another. And the living entity, originally being avikara or unchangeable, suffers a great deal on account of changes due to the influence of time. The changing effects of eternal time are conspicuously absent in the immortal kingdom of God, which should therefore be understood to have no influence of time and therefore no fear whatsoever. In the material world, so-called happiness is the result of one's own work. One can become a rich man by dint of one's own hard labor, and there are always fear and doubts as to the duration of such acquired happiness. But in the kingdom of God, no one has to endeavor to attain a standard of happiness. Happiness is the nature of the spirit, as stated in the Vedanta Sutras. Anandamayobhyasat, the spirit is by nature full of happiness. Happiness in the spiritual nature always increases in volume with a new phase of appreciation. There is no question of decreasing the bliss. Such unalloyed spiritual bliss is nowhere to be found within the orbit of the material universe, including the Janaloka planets, or for that matter, the Maharloka or Satyaloka planets. Because even Lord Brahma is subject to the laws of fruitive actions and the law of birth and death. It is therefore stated here, Duratyayaha, or in other words, spiritual happiness in the eternal kingdom of God cannot be imagined even by the great brahmacharis or sannyasis who are eligible to be promoted to the planets beyond the region of heaven. Or the greatness of the Supreme Lord is so great that it cannot be imagined even by the great brahmacharis or sannyasis. But such happiness is factually attained by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord by His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is a long purport again. And Prabhupada here explaining all these things about the vibhutis of the Lord, His expansions and His planets, and how the Lord is being glorified in the spiritual planets. And the Lord is being served by all His assistants, and all His assistants, they glorify the Lord. Lord increases the pleasure of all His associates in the spiritual world. So there, यत्र चाद्यः पुमानस्ते भगवान् शब्दगोचरः सत्त्वं विष्टभ्य विरजं स्वानाम्नो मृडयन् वृषः. So the Lord Sattvam Vishtabhya Muraj, He increases Swanamno Mrudayan, so it increases the happiness. Sattvam Vishtabhya Virjam Swanamno Mrudayan Vrushaha. That is the Lord, their happiness, it always increases. And so that is the Anandamayobhyasa. And here Prabhupada is explaining everything is very, very beautiful, bringing to different parts of the Bhagavatam, and number of universes, they're just like a mustard seeds, they cannot be counted. And here they are in the mode of unalloyed goodness only. They are in the Vishuddha Sattva Vishuddha Sattvam or Shuddha Sattvam. And they're all illuminating their Swaprakasha, Avyaktoksha iti yukta tamapuhu paramam gatim yam prapyana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Even though all the other planet systems, they fall, but those spiritual planets, they exist as it is, and they shine millions of, like if a comparison to Prabhupada is giving, self-illuminating and more powerfully dazzling than the total sunshine of millions of mundane suns. That is a very beautiful thing. And they are always immortal. There are no birth, divorce, disease and death. So they're all Syamavadataha Satapatralochanaha Pishangavastraha Suruchaha Supeshashaha. They're all youth, always in the youth. They have got youth, we can say under 16 years of age. Like our Krishna and Radha and all gopis, Gopa boys and everyone. and they are full of knowledge of everything. They are all godly, free from all sorts of material hankerings. And the Lord Narayana, with his expansions, he is predominating deity of such Vaikuntha planets. And they sing all the glories of the Lord from the Samaveda. Vedaihi Sangapada Kramopanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaha. Even not only those people, or even Garuda, when he is flapping his wings, at that time also, they also bring the Vedas from the Samaveda. Nirikyatasya yavashesha siddheshwarabhishtata siddhamargaha akarnayan patratendra pakshaihi uccaritam stomam udirna sama. Uccaritam stomam udirna sama. When the Garuda is flapping his wings, from there also these hymns from Samaveda, they emanate. So this one Maitreya Rishi was saying to Vidura when Lord came to visit Kaddama Prajapati and returning back, at that time Garuda's wings were flapping, that sound was coming. And then further Prabhupada is explaining about the Pada Vibhuti, about the material world, and Tripad Vibhuti is the transcendental world. And spiritual eternal forms which are auspicious, infallible, spiritual, and eternal youthful. That is again the same thing Prabhupada explained. So repetition is not a redundancy. So here, to understand again and again about the beauty of the spiritual planets. So it happens according to the Sanskrit and grammar and the circumstances. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says, or Arjuna also repeats the prayers in similar way. And again here, this is the Master and Lord, the Lord, and whoever is associating with the Lord, they will also have the similar quality. So they are free from Nanyatra Mad Bhagavataha Pradhana Purusheshwarat Atmanaha Sarvabhutanam Everyone Nanyatra Mad Bhagavataha. So Bhayam Tevram Nanivattate. Except to the Lord, no one can give fearlessness to the living entities. That's why bhakti. So here people Kshemaya Padamolame Pravishinti Akuto Bhayam by Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yogena, so they engage themselves in the Bhakti Yoga, and Pravishinti Akuto Bhayam, with fearlessness, they will attain the fearlessness in due course of time. Etadesha Nimeshasya Prakristopi Tadgunaihi Nagyate Sada Atmastaihi Yada Buddhihi Tada Shriya. When the Lord comes this material world, he is free from all these things. And similarly, all the devotees and all his paraphernalia who are associating with the Lord, they are also free from the mrityu and also bhayam. This is bhayam one can experience antaha purusharupena kalarupena yo bahihi samanvetya sattvanam bhagavan atma maya. He will make the living entities to experience all these things whatever he desires. But the time factor, kalam yeketo bhayam, it makes the fear in the living entities. So, but whoever is associating with the Lord, they are free from the fearfulness. So, and also this birth, old age, disease, they are always free. They never fear about it. And this is Prabhupada further saying, avikara, and this all suffers a great deal on account of changes. Yet chetam samasena savikaram udahrutam. The body is always, there are changes happening. You have to eat nice palatable food. As much as we eat it, there are that many more changes coming into the body. It will become old very quickly. It will get prone to the diseases and die very quickly. And if we wanted to prolong out the human body, one has to control the food habits. Eat limitedly, only as much as needed to keep body healthy. And even though one Prabhupada mentions, if you have got eaten and if you are not hungry, don't eat it. Even though you wanted to eat it, just don't eat it sometimes. That means there are many people, they don't have enough food, but they live longer. They don't take much food, they live longer to maintain the body as it is. They don't know the, but here, etat kshetam samasena savikara mudavrutam. As long as there is some food going into the tummy, there is changes within the body. So we have to give only the nourishing, the fruits, which can be easily taken, absorbed, and that doesn't make the body too many changes, like oily foods and all these things. They will make bodies too many changes, vikara. And here Prabhupada is mentioning here that kind of vikara doesn't happen in the spiritual world, is being avikara. But whenever he is wrapped up by stola and sukshma dehas, then he will be prone into all these things. If it is subtle body, yat sankalp vikalpabhyam vartate kama sambhavaha. Even the mind also having kama sambhavaha, sankalp vikalpabhyam. I want to do this, I want to do that. Likewise, such kind of thoughts will keep on coming into the mind. That is the subtle level. And also intelligence as well. Okay, so, and then further Prabhupada is mentioning about the eternal time. In the spiritual world, there is no influence of time, and all of the Lord's expansions. And in this material world only, the time influence exists. Okay, so that is one thing. And about the quality of the people, living entities. Happiness is the nature of the spirit, as stated in the Vedanta Sutras. Anandamayo abhyasat. It is full of happiness. That one has to reveal it by oneself, by the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra among the devotees association. That is recommended in the scriptures. And whenever he is experiencing evam supriya nama kirtya jatanurago dhutachitta uchchaihi hasati ato roditi ravuti unmadavat nrutyati lokabahyaha. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's symptoms. Once he dances, one becomes like sings and laughs and cries. These are the symptoms when he feels that kind of ecstasy. These are when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ishwarapuri about what is happening to me. Then Ishwarapuri showed this verse coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam supriya nama kirtya jatanurago dhutachitta uchchaihi hasati ato roditi rahuti unmadavat nrutyati lokabahyaha. He doesn't care about the outside people. He always loves and cries and feels separation from the Lord and cries. And he is always happy within himself and dances sometimes like a unmadavat nrutyati lokabahya. He doesn't care about the outside people. That is the happiness of a spiritually enlightened person. So there is no question of decreasing, that it will always increasing. Such unalloyed spiritual bliss is nowhere to be found within the orbit of the material universe. So including Janaloka planets, for that matter Maharloka, or all these things, including even Lord Brahmas. That's why Duratjayaha, this is immeasurable. Yasyavatar karmani gayanti hasmadadayaha tasmai namo bhagavate. So here Brahma says further, we cannot count the glories of the Lord. So simply we have to offer our obeisances to the Lord. Simply, that's all. That is what the devotional service. So and then further, the greatness of the Supreme Lord is so great that it cannot be imagined even by the great brahmacharis or sannyasis. Such happiness is factually attained by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord by his divine grace. So likewise, Prabhupada is very beautifully explaining us and taking to different part of it. And when we see these Vaikuntha planets and verses are explaining from Srimad Bhagavatam, and all these people, Vaimanikaha salalana charitani shashvat gayanti yatra samalakshyapanani bhattuhum anta jala Antajali anuvikasat madhumadhavinam gandhena kandita diyopi anilam kshipantaham. So here there are airplanes and people are going and glorifying here. There are flowers here, ponds, the smell is coming and these devotees are singing all these things. Shri Rupini yatra urgaya padayoho gayanti yatra. So she always sings the glories of the Lord. Likewise, that is all the planets and all these Shri Rupini Kunayati Charanarvindam Leelambujena Harisadmani Mukta Dosham Samlakshate Spatika Kudjupeta Hemni Samajati Vayadanagrahani Anyayatnaham. Everyone are trying to serve the Lord to get attention of the Lord. Yadanugrahani Anyayatnaha, by different activities. Like when we go to the temple, all the devotees they are serving without any expectations, no selfishness. That is the Vaikunta. There we don't see mode of passion and mode of ignorance. Krishnatmanam Naraja Adadhu Usmayadjahi. Even though there are beautiful women in the temples or in the Vaikunta lokas, but still who are serving, they don't get any passionate or think, the mind cannot think in a wrong way. That is the Vaikunta. If we go to the temple, Mana temple, it is the Vaikunta. That's why in the temple room and the temple premises in the compound, that is all spiritual. So no one get the mode of passion. But whoever get that kind of passion, immediately they will go out of the temple. So that by the Lord's arrangement. So that is the spiritual planets. Very beautifully explained here. All these things, that is happiness. I stop here, dear devotees, and I request if you have got any questions or comments, you wanted to share anything else, kindly share. Hare Krishna. Are you able to unmute?
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My humble obeisances unto you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Beautiful class, very nice slides and very nice explanation. Very nice. My one question is, sometimes when we understand and because we are devoted and we are learning, and obviously we love Krishna, even if we are neophytes and just beginners, whatever. But then when in our material contacts, like in workplace or I don't know, the previous kind of friendship groups and all that, if they ask, not ask, I mean, if they kind of blaspheme or ask atheistic questions sometimes, because I think I can say for myself that because I love Krishna, I get inside, I get agitated that why they are blaspheming and things they can do. Nobody is forcing them to. I'm not forcing them to come to ISKCON or know about Krishna. I'm not doing anything like that. But then they are kind of. I feel very what do you call that? Agitated inside that. Though I say you can choose your own path and everything, and I say good things, but then sometimes I don't know how it how they interpret, they kind of wind me up, or maybe that's just their thing that kind of they, I don't like it to say that they kind of criticize either ISKCON or Krishna or something, and they don't have any understanding. So how do we deal with people like that? What do we say? Though I say politely that you choose your own path, there is no binding, nobody is forcing you to do anything. So I say them politely, but still inside I feel so a little bit agitated. So that was my question.
Yeah, so this is generally when we deal with the material people. So we just give the example of how this material world, the seasons are coming gradually, months are coming rotatively. So if we take any object, so behind that object there is a person who made it. One person is there. If there is a grains, there is a person who cultivated it, and there is a person who have sowed the seed, and everything. For every activity, for every object, there is a person behind it. and all these all the oceans are being maintained, and the water is not going out of it, out of the beach. And similarly, the sun is not moving away from the orbits, and everything is properly maintained. Do we think that is happening just like that instance? So, and how the water evaporating from the oceans, the sun is evaporating, made this what distilled in the sky and made the clouds, and then in due course of time rain is falling to all the living entities. All living entities sustain on that water. Likewise, it is the wheel is going on. So do we think that there is no one behind this arrangement? That we have to ask. Everything, can you show me any one activity or one object, there is no person behind it? This is a straight material question. So this is there are three kinds of authorities. Like one is the Veda Pramana, that is Shruti Pramana, hearing from the Vedas. Another one is the Anumana, is the expect, even though we don't see directly with our material eyes, but we can guess it based on the symptoms and things are going behind it. So we don't see the soul, but we can understand by the, it is Anumana. So there is someone behind it, superior to us. That is one kind of. And another one is, third one is the Pratyaksha, directly in front of us, it is happening. This we can understand. So these are the three paramanas coming from the Vedas. When we are explaining and talking, we need to give these examples and reasons to bring the topic nearer to Krishna. Then anyone can understand. But technically, if he is a foolish person, we cannot argue, we discuss much. Too much, if they're talking too much. If they're attentive to hear at least little bit, then we can speak. Otherwise, it is useless to speak anything further conversations.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, so we are already 3 minutes to 9 o'clock. So no questions. Then we shall conclude our session. Okay, thank you so much for kindly giving me this association. This is mentioned, one moment of devotees association, not even equivalent to the heavenly comforts or even the liberation, what to speak of the earthly comforts. तुलयामलवेनापि न स्वर्गं न पुनर्भवं भगवत्संगे संगस्य मच्चेनां किमुताशिषः. Such a kind of opportunity you gave it to me. So I thank you so much. And with that one, वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
Namo Namaha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a nice class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.